Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Toon review for this morning's Newcastle United news and, of course, press conference reaction, as Eddie has been speaking to the media ahead of the FA Cup game against Brighton, of course, on Sunday. Don't forget, full commentary of that game will be live on the Toon review. I think 1:15 we start on Sunday with a 1:45 kickoff at St James's Park. Full match build-up and, of course, play-by-play commentary of the game. But welcome, everyone, on air this Friday, sunny Friday morning up here in the Northeast. Hope you're all well. Well, was he asked the questions that we want to hear? Not really, no. He was asked about Nick Pope. We'll come on to that. Certainly not about the centre-backs, the pressing questions that we want to ask about the centre-back situation, and not great. However, we'll start off as usual on the injury news, and that was a little bit more positive. Certainly, Joe Linton and Botman are pressing for a place in the starting lineup on Sunday. They haven't trained yet with the team, but Eddie was confident that they may train today with the team and will be pushing for a first team start on Sunday. Now, you'd think that because they haven't trained with the team this week, that the chances are that he's, are they going to come straight into the team lineup? Because God, we need them. But it's kind of needs must at the minute, I think. But the problem I've got is Eddie again stating that things were okay in the middle of the park against Liverpool. He said both boxes there was problems, but between the penalty areas, he's still convinced we did fine. I'm really not sure what game he's watching. The only really pressing question he was asked on was really Bruno. And is it fatigue? Is it tiredness? And then Eddie turned around and said, well, it can only be, Bruno that can tell us that. He did say that he's got his calendar is full. And we did discuss this last night, with Bruno and how he's looking on the pitch at the minute, not as quick and he's a little bit like running in tar right now. So he did say that, his calendar is full because even after the cup final, he's away with Brazil. So he's not really getting any breaks. And then he was asked if he would consider resting him on Sunday. Would it be a perfect time to rest him? Kind of deflected that as well. So listen, Bruno, we know is a fantastic player when he's on his game. There is no doubt about his capabilities, but we all know that he hasn't been at it for a couple of weeks now. And really, I would say fatigue. I really would. I'd say that because he's been, thrown into every game possible. And you look back at some of the games and you think, well, was Bruno really needed in that game? Did we need to play him? Surely we have certain games this season where we've played and he's put Bruno in, and you think, well, why? Give the guy a rest. I mean, Bruno himself, and he stated that, Bruno himself has to come forward and state if he's feeling any fatigue or he's tired. That's fair enough, but you're the manager. At the end of the day, you make the decisions. If you yourself think Bruno's, fatigued or whatever it may be, then you as a manager surely should be making the decision to take him out on the team. What I was really disappointed on, nobody pressed him on the centre-backs, and the performances of late, certainly from Fabian Schär. I don't know why they don't ask the question, because it's obvious to us. It's obvious to us that Schär's out of form. He hasn't played well all season. But for some reason, we don't get that in a press conference. We don't get that pressing question as to Fabian Schär. It seems like hands off, and I don't know the reason for that. I couldn't tell you. I don't know why nobody presses on Fabian Schär. I don't know whether they've been instructed not to. I couldn't see why not. But at the same time, that's what's going on, guys. We don't see a pressing question on would he consider giving Fabian Schär time on the bench and maybe put Kraft back in. But obviously, if Botman's going to be fit on Sunday, then you would think that Botman would probably take Fabian Schär's place. I mean, that's just what I'm thinking, because Botman, for me, Botman and Byrne did really well when they played together. And certainly out of Share and Byrne, it's Share that I would drop right now. You know what it is? I just think he's bang out of form. Bang out of form. And he does need dropping. Now, the goalkeeper situation. He did get the question. What do you think of Nick Pope's performances in the last 2 games? And I mean, Eddie, I got the impression that Eddie knows that the way he answered the question and the body language during it would say to me that Eddie knows that he's maybe made a clanger there, because he tried to. Obviously, he's not going to throw Nick Pope under the bus. He's not going to say that. But what he did say was that, he's coming back from injury. There will still be a little bit of rust there. Nick Pope himself will know that he's not at his very best, etc., etc. But then he was asked how's Martin taking it, and then Martin, he talked about Martin Dubravka and sort of shut that down in a way, saying that he obviously was disappointed, but he's got to force his way back in the team. But again, I'll reiterate this thing that Eddie says in his press conferences, which kind of gnarls me a little bit, guys. And when he's asked questions like that, and he turns around and said that, you get into the team and you have to, if you get your opportunity in the team, you have to take it. And he keeps reiterating this in press conferences. And for me, he kind of looks a bit of a hypocrite, because what he's saying is, you come into the team and play well, you deserve to stay there. Well, hello, Martin Dubravka. Nick Pope has been pretty dreadful for the 2 games that we've seen him, and he's still in the team. Now, for me, Dubravka has to come back in on Sunday. He has to. Nick Pope, I don't know whether it's his shoulder that's causing him the issues, or whether he's got that in the back of his mind when he's diving for the ball or he's challenging for the ball. I can understand in a way if it is in his head, because that, an injury like that, you do have, it's always in the back of your mind, a previous injury. It's hypocritical. Willock got pulled at half-time and walks back in. Well, I mean, he was asked about Miley coming back in as well, and he just said, yeah, he did really well when he came on against Liverpool, and he's played well before that. Well, okay, Eddie, put him in. Put him in the team. It's all right saying that we got to look after him and things like that. But listen, he's bulked up. He's a very fit young man. Put him in. He's 18. Put him in. I mean, at 18-year-olds, you are fit as a fiddle. Really fit as a fiddle. And I would love to see Miley in. Possibly to rest Bruno. But then again, who do you bring in for Willock if Joe Linton's not going to be fit? Peter, good morning. I'm starting to think that as well, that Pope is still having a problem with his left shoulder. Mark says, to be fair, surely Eddie and Mad Dog will be having those conversations about sharing craft. Even a blind man can see he's bang out of form. Well, this is the thing, Mark. You would think so. You would actually think that those conversations are taking place, but are they? Because Cher just seems to play week in, week out, no problem at all. And it doesn't matter how he plays. He's in the team the week after. Now, obviously, Botman came back, but Cher was suspended at the time. So he kind of got away with it a little bit. But now is a crunch. When Botman is fit, and if he's fit to play Sunday, does he drop Fabian Cher? And for me, it's a no-brainer. David said, I would put Miley in for Bruno on Sunday's game beyond doubt, but we all know it won't happen. Hasbo says, Miley should start for me on Sunday alongside Dubes and Botman if he's fit. Well, look, Dubes for me has got to come back in. I mean, this goalkeeping thing is starting to piss a lot of fans off, actually. Because, yes, Nick Pope has been great for us. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying Nick Pope is anything other than he's done really, really well for us, okay? But there is times where, and even Eddie said, you've got to go on what's best for the team. He said that at least twice in the press conference this morning, saying it's about the team. Well, okay, if it's about the team, Eddie, then you look at your goalkeepers and think, right, Nick Pope is still not right. There is something not right with Nick Pope. Clearly, You know, whether that be his reflexes or a quickness, but he's still terrible with his feet as well. So there's all that to consider. But when you big Martin Dubravka up, and he's performed so well, helping us get to a cup final, going on an unbeaten run, all that type of thing. And then he signs a new contract, and then you leave him out the same week he signs a new contract. I think it's shitty. I do think it's shitty, considering I don't think Dubravka needed to be dropped or deserved to be dropped in any shape or form. And then you've got the manager then saying, well, if you perform when you're in the team and you take that opportunity, you stay in the team. But if you don't take that opportunity, you won't be. Yet he continues to play players who don't deserve to be there. Steve says, Dubes for Pope, Kraft for Shea, Miley for Willock. Spike, good morning. Kraft and Miley must start, and Botman if fit. House double standards. I mean, look, he seemed in very good nature this morning, Eddie Howe. I mean, Luke Edwards, he always tries to make Eddie laugh. And I kind of like that in a way. I mean, when it came to Luke Edwards' question this morning, he said, have you been working out? You're looking chiseled. I think that's more to do with a couple of defeats that he hasn't liked as to why he's looking a bit more chiseled. But, I mean, I just want a clear-cut answer of what goes through the manager's head when he's making these sort of decisions. Paul World says 4-0 at City was definitely Eddie's opportunity to bring Pope back in. Well, you say that, Paul, but I guess it was because we lost the game 4-0 and we were pretty dreadful. But when you consider the performances from Dubravka before then were absolutely outstanding. And for me, it was a big part of why we got to the Carabao Cup final, a big part of why we went on such an unbeaten run. He made some great saves. His distribution was great. And then, you know, nobody turned up at the Etihad. I mean, if he's going to drop a goalkeeper for that performance, he may as well have dropped the whole 11 and brought in the academy players. But he didn't deserve it. It wasn't down to Martin Dubravka that we got thumped at City. The players were just dreadful. So, yes, I agree. It was his opportunity to maybe have an excuse to bring Nick Pope back in. But now Nick Pope's had 2 games where he's looked really poor. Really poor. And I think now is the time where Eddie's got to be... We talk about this ruthless streak with Eddie. Has he actually got this ruthless streak in him? And people say that we don't see what goes on behind the scenes. No, we don't see what goes on back there. However... if he's being ruthless, we get to see that in the team selections. And quite frankly, we haven't seen that. That's my concern. Dylan says, Pope refuses to dive for the ball certain ways for months now. He's putting the league position at risk if he keeps picking him. Stephen says, I agree about dropping Dubravka. Terrible management. Hasbo just saying with Dubes in goal, we went on a run of 9-game unbeaten run. Just saying, but hopefully we win on Sunday. Just Matt, a member for 10 months on the channel here, Paul. I hope you're well. The good news is that my university offer for sports psychology has been accepted. Oh, fantastic. Congratulations, buddy. Really good news. Kevin says we really need Botman and Joe Linton to get some minutes on the pitch before the final. If they're fit, they should play on Sunday. Yep, I agree, Kev, but you're always going to get other fans counterbalancing that and saying, oh, well, maybe we should leave them out and keep them fit for the final. You know, we've got big games before the final. You know, this one, and then the West Ham away is going to be a very, very tough game. But you look at that game and think, right, we need to get the Premier League form going again. So we need to go to the London Stadium and win. And that would give us a really good boost going into the cup final. But we have to do that. Martin says they must all have blinkers on over Shah. The Pope is finished after injury, which is a shame, but we can't carry it anymore when we are heading to the top. Absolutely. One question did really, I was thinking, my God, please no. He was asked about Callum Wilson, and he said, if Callum Wilson can get a run of games going, and score some goals, would that sway to give him a new contract? And I'm thinking, you know what? How many times are we going to do this? Is give these players who we know are practically done, 30-odd-year-old, and give them new contracts. We need to move them out and make space for new, younger, hungry players. And hopefully we'll see that in the summer. But for all the reasons in the world, I cannot agree even if Callum scores 5 or 6 goals before the end of the season, I still think he should leave the club in the summer. Why give him a new contract? We can bring another striker in, younger, just as hungry, and probably better than Callum now. You know, we need to stop giving these 30-odd-year-old players new contracts and again, we need to show a bit of ruthlessness within the club and say, right, thank you for your service. It's time you and the club moved in separate directions. JT Toon says, Pope looks dodgy when diving now after his injuries. He was once a stalwart, but now looks nervous. Doobs must come back in. Super chat from Ricky Thomas. Thank you, Ricky. Doobs done nout at all to get dropped. Just another Eddie favourite. Well, I mean, when he does this, I can't help but agree. Kevin says, no, Wilson is done. If he scores between now and May, great. It means we may win a cup or get top 4, but that's enough now. 100%. 100%. Susan says, Callum on form is a really good striker. They cost a lot, Paul. Yes, Susan, they do. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. However, you know, Callum is a really good striker, but he's never fit. And that's been proven over several seasons now, that we can't rely on him to stay fit. It's time to say thank you, but goodbye. I know that sounds a little bit harsh on Callum because he's done a great job for us. Nobody's denying that. He scored some great goals for us, but we need now to go in a different direction to Callum Wilson, no matter how he performs for the rest of the season, because the same thing's going to happen. And we all know it is. If he signs a new contract, he gets injured again. He's out for most of the season again. And, it's just been a complete waste of time, waste of wages when we could be spending that money on a younger striker. We have to stop having basically a pensioner's home at Newcastle United. We need to just keep that. Football club very much should be like a conveyor belt at times. You know, your players, they serve a purpose for what they're brought in to do, which Callum has undoubtedly done, but the time is now. And I disagree with Eddie when he said Callum, he said in the press conference that Callum did really well at Liverpool. No, he didn't. Stop trying to kid the fans here. He didn't. He just did not play very well in that game. And anybody that thinks that, I think, have a word with yourself. But that's what annoys me, because he keeps saying things like that, and you kind of think, Eddie, you were on the touchline, mate. You saw the same game as everybody else. You saw certain performances that really weren't good enough. Ruffian Benisian says a win versus West Ham is a must. Last 11 games last season against some clubs, we got 7 wins and 2 draws. So form needs to pick up. We got a draw against West Ham last season, so a win is a must. Yvonne says Wilson has had an extra 2 years and not done diddly squat. Exactly. Mike says any player at the club should be standing up when putting that black and white shirt on, because some of the players are underperforming in the team. Wilson's chances were criminal on Wednesday. Well, look, there will be a bit of rust in Callum Wilson. I'm not going to sit here and say, he should just jump straight on the pitch and smash the back of the net all the time. He's been out a long time, but this is my issue with him getting a new contract. I just can't agree with that. As a Newcastle fan, I can't agree with it. I think at certain points in club and player careers, you have to part ways. The time is now. This summer, the time is to part ways with Callum. And that's nothing against Callum. But his body is starting to tell him that the rigmaroles of the Premier League are a little bit difficult for him at the minute. And where we want to be as a football club, we have to start looking forward, not backwards or standing still with players. But when you hear the manager come out and say that he thought he did okay on Wednesday, I'm not sure. I think that Eddie sees the same game sometimes. Martin says we'd put Asula in over Wilson. But if Wilson comes in and scores goals, he will get a new contract. That's a fact. Charles says Wilson's 33 now. Yeah, and he's not playing regularly. He's just not. And he won't. Wilson is not going to be a regular starter for anybody now. No doubt about it. He will get injured again. His career has proved that over time. NH92 says, I think it's sentiment with Eddie towards Wilson. I think Eddie knows Wilson is gone and is giving him as many minutes as possible. Kev says, we simply have to put in some consistent league performances. Whatever happens in the Cubs, we could so easily slip down the table. It's so close. Yeah, it is. And I looked at it this morning. And I think it's only 3 points between us and 10th or 11th. But if we don't start picking Premier League points up, we will start sliding down. And we don't want that. You know, this season, at present, as we sit here now, is looking really good. We're 6th in the Premier League. We're challenging for top 4. We're in the Carabao Cup final. We have a chance of getting into the quarterfinals of the FA Cup on Sunday. You look at that from an outsider and you think, that's not a bad season at all. But recent form has not been great. Some decisions about players haven't been great. But I guess that's why we love football, because there's always things for us fans to talk about, isn't there? There's always talking points. Whether we agree or disagree on them, it doesn't matter. They're talking points, and there's always going to be that at Newcastle United. That's something that we love about this football club, is there always is news and talking points to discuss on shows like this. There always will be as well. Jan says a new contract for Wilson is only to polish all the other players' boots. End of. Wilson is an OAP in striker years. Yeah, I mean, look, you look at like the likes of, I mean, he's a one-off. He's an enigma. Is Ronaldo? You know, and Messi. They're still going at very into their late 30s. You know, but they're two players who are complete one-offs. But you know what? You look at Callum Wilson and you think, nah. I mean, Olivier Giroud, who I used to highly admire, I thought he was a fantastic player, very underrated when he was in the Premier League. But you look at Giroud and how he performed. Callum can't do that anymore. I mean, he might go and score a few goals for us the rest of the season. Fantastic if he does. Absolutely fantastic. But he is not the future anymore of Newcastle United. He is not our number 9. You know, just no. We can't keep giving contracts to these players when we all know as fans, no matter how well somebody does, it is time to move on. If Wilson could stay fit, we could keep him. But the problem is he's injured too much for me. Thanks for what you've done, but it's time to go and upgrade that position. Wholeheartedly agree. Susan, thank you. Susan Fagan with a super chat. In my opinion, club will weigh everything up and make the call. Strikers of his quality aren't cheap, and we're looking at other areas. Understand your point on injury, but think Eddie and co will make the right call. Well, hey, look, that's your opinion, Susan, and you know I value your opinion on this channel. You know, you stick by them as well. You know, I don't necessarily agree whether Eddie will make the right call, because I don't think they made the right call on certain contracts that they've given players anyway. But I see your point. They will weigh things up, absolutely. But if we're led to believe what the press is saying, there is 4 key positions that Newcastle are looking at in the summer. And that's goalkeeper, a right centre-back, a right winger, and another striker. They are the 4 positions that are mainly being reported in the press as to where Paul Mitchell is focusing on for the summer. So, you know, that would say to me that they are looking beyond Callum Wilson. Steve says, Wilson is now a second-class and made-of-glass striker. He was a good striker, not anymore. Look, he is a good striker, right? I'm not taking anything away from his abilities as a striker. He's deadly. When he's on form, he's fit and firing. Callum Wilson is a fantastic striker. He's proved that over his career. But his fitness is where that has been a letdown. His injuries have crippled him. And I think his injuries have caught up with him now. We can't give a player a new contract who's absolutely made of glass. It wouldn't surprise me if he picks up another injury soon. Not based on his injury record. You can't renew his contract over getting fresh legs in. Totally agree. Totally agree. Sean says Liverpool are not brilliant. They're consistent. They can thank their manager for that. If Newcastle are at 100% one week, then 50% the next, the manager is to blame, but I love him. Eddie stays. Patrick says, I agree with you, Paul, about moving players on. but kind of counteracts the Dubravka contract. Understood why he was replaced by Pope at the time, as he also conceded 4 against Bournemouth. Yes, but Dubravka, for me, the goalkeeping situation, I still believe that Dubravka will be here next season, but Nick Pope won't. And I think that's why he got the contract, because we'll look to change one goalkeeper in the summer, and I think that goalkeeper is going to be Pope. And James Trafford looks like he's coming in. So it's a little bit different. Baffling how Pope started in goal. He has been abysmal this season. Dubravka didn't really do anything majorly wrong in that 4-0 loss to City. Thomas says, okay, so Wilson could do a job till the end of the season, but agree, he has to go. Bood says, is the point of a new contract not for squad depth? And I don't think Eddie likes to criticize individual players in press conferences. He's not daft. He will know that he wasn't great. Yeah, but he doesn't have to come out and say he wasn't great, but he can just say, yeah, Callum's getting back to fitness, or he's been out a long time, and we're pushing him to shake off the rustiness. He doesn't have to be nasty about it. He can be very sort of complimentary about Callum Wilson, but he doesn't have to be, nasty by any stretch of the imagination. But let's look at some of the points that Eddie said. This is what he said, first of all. We are always pushing, always wanting more. The challenge for us is to still be in all competitions after this weekend. We want to give everything to try and get into the next round. Now, speaking about Isak, he says, I haven't seen him since the game. We don't think it is a long-term problem, but there was no risk taken on Wednesday, and there can't be at this stage of the season. We will see how he is today and have a discussion with him. If he's fit, he will play. So, no doubt, if Isak's fit, he plays straight away. So, Callum's back on the bench. So, all the talk about Callum Wilson, Isak, to be fair, Eddie did really push that point through this morning, that when Isak is fit, he plays. And he talked about Callum having a very difficult time of it, because he's got to try and knock Isak out of the team, and that's just not going to happen. He didn't say that directly, but you could tell by what he was saying about Isak is that if he's fit, he will play. And he mentioned, the reporter mentioned a couple of times about the record that when we don't have Isak to when we do, and things like that. And Eddie stated, obviously, he's a very, very important player. He denies we're a one-man team, which I don't think we are. But, Isak is there as a striker. A striker is there to score goals. The rest of the team chip in with goals, but also assist him with goals. So, look, what I worry about with that comment about Isak is we don't think it's a long-term problem. Because how many times, ladies and gents, have we actually heard Eddie Howe say that in press conferences, and then we don't see the player for months on end? It is worrying when he says that, because he said it so many times since he's been manager of this football club. It does worry you when he says it's not expected to be a long-term injury, and then about a week later he'll sit in the press conference and go, yeah, it's not too great at the minute, and then it just goes on and on and on and on. It's hilarious sometimes, absolutely hilarious. But he said it didn't happen against Forest. Well, what he said was he felt fine after the Forest game. He felt fine the day after. It was then the day after that he felt a problem. He got up and felt a problem. So that's as far as he went into it. He just said that if he's fit, he plays. Take that as you will, I guess. That's just how we roll at the minute. Now, Callum Wilson, of course, took a blow to the face, didn't he, from, a clash of heads with Virgil van Dijk. He said, Callum's okay. He took a cut to his eye, but he will be okay. Sven and Joe have a chance. Today is a big day for them. Today we will see how close they are, whether they train with the team for the first time or not. Knowing both players, they will be keen to be involved. So you've got to be very, I guess some of Eddie Howe's press conferences, guys, are very sort of cryptic, aren't they? He gives these cryptic answers which create all this kind of conversation for these reaction videos, and to say, well, what is he, take a little deep dive into that. What is he actually saying? Now, for me, I think Eddie fully expects Joe Linton and Botman to train with the team today. I don't know how you took that, but that's what I got from it. Knowing them, they will want to be involved. And I think we have to be careful, especially with Botman. You know, it'll be fantastic to have Joe Linton back because Christ, he's been a miss. But Joe Linton was poor in his couple of games before he got injured. But we all thought that he was injured before then, didn't we? So he's obviously been carrying that for a while, which has sort of affected his performances on the pitch, and maybe why we've seen him get a little bit frustrated when he's on the pitch. You know, he's getting very frustrated, going in for tackles that maybe he shouldn't, and he's got a bit lucky on. But Joe Linton coming back into the side makes a world of difference. And it hopefully will make an absolute world of difference to Bruno as well, who I think does miss the fact that Joe Linton is missing. Joe Linton takes a lot of the physicality away. Bruno's allowed to express himself a bit more, and Tonali to an extent. So I think he's hoping that they're back training with the team today, and they'll be involved. Now, on the FA Cup, he said it's a huge competition. We know the importance of it. We don't take it lightly. This will be a tough game. Brighton are in great form. This should be a really exciting cup tie. Their away form has been very strong, and it will be a test for us, but one I am sure we can rise to. Now, obviously, he did talk about the previous game against Brighton at St James's Park earlier in the season, which Brighton, of course, won. But we didn't play badly in that game. Yes, Susan, that's fine. You can definitely jump on. We've got the preview of the match tonight, 7 o'clock. But we'll also get you guys on in the second half of the show as well to discuss the game and see what you're thinking ahead of the FA Cup game. So, yeah, we'll still get you fans on. So, yeah, it'd be nice to see you on, Susan. But don't forget, 7 o'clock tonight. That is the preview, I believe, with me and Sam tonight. Paul Welch says the club just announced live TV now for the Leicester, Man United and Villa games. Well, there you go. God knows. We'll see what the kickoff times are and stuff. But yeah, like I'm saying, it would the FA Cup is a special for me, and certainly I think for a lot of football fans growing up through the years. You know, when they used to have the cameras used to be on the buses with the teams going into Wembley, and you used to make a full day of the FA Cup final. So it's still a special competition for me as a football fan. And you know, is it getting its spark back a little bit? I think so. This is a wonderful opportunity for Newcastle United, though, as a football club. You know, we're at Wembley in the Carabao Cup, and we have a real good opportunity to go a long way in the FA Cup. There's some big teams being knocked out of the FA Cup, and the other teams left in it. You think, yeah, we could give them a game. So I really do think it might be an opportunity, and just think, you know, semi-finals are played at Wembley as well, aren't they? So I disagree with that, by the way, completely. I think that's an absolute farce. So yeah, was it called Coca-Cola, or is that the Carabao? That was the League Cup. That was the Carabao. Used to be known as the Coca-Cola Cup. I mean, it is sponsored now. It's the Emirates FA Cup, isn't it? But everybody knows it is the FA Cup. It's one of the biggest cup competitions in the world. And for us as a club to be this far down the line in the FA Cup, still going strong, with an opportunity now to really push for a place in the semi-finals. Beat Brighton on Sunday. It's a quarter-final. Hopefully we get a decent draw on that one, and then we march on. But I think we need to march on in all three competitions here, guys. I think where we want to be, we've got a great opportunity this season to actually get something out of it. And finally end that hoodoo for a trophy and some silverware that we haven't won for so bloody long. This is a chance this season. This is one of the biggest chances we've had in a while, I think, to bring in silverware. Because normally if you do well in one cup competition, you don't do well in the other one, do you? You know, you very rarely find two sides that are going to be at the pinnacle of both. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't. And most times you don't. It's just a real opportunity. But bear this in mind, though, guys. Brighton are not going to come here and just roll over. Brighton are hitting form again at a really good time of the season for them. The scoring goals are playing some fabulous football. So it will be a tough game. And it's going to be very interesting to see how we turn up for this game, because it's a huge game. And I just don't want to go out of the tournament. I do not want to lose this game on Sunday. I think it's vitally important for us to keep believing and get that morale as high as possible, that we keep marching on in both the cup competitions and the Premier League. Why not? We're in a wonderful, wonderful position. Now, it is a little bit of, sad day because, of course, 4 years ago, we lost Glenn Roeder, of course, guys, who was a player that I grew up watching when I started watching Newcastle United. Very accomplished centre-back, very brave, very strong defender. And then, of course, later in years was Newcastle United manager for a time. So, those of you that do have memories of Glenn Roeder, what a wonderful, wonderful player he was. Absolutely wonderful. And a real nice gentleman as well. 4 years down the line since we lost Glenn Roeder. Now, I'm just having a look at some of the sort of breaking news about Newcastle United. Nothing really indicating anything apart from talking about Eddie's press conference this morning. There's a report in the Independent about the key to unlocking Newcastle United's future as a Premier League giant. Times must be tough in the reporting world at the minute. Talking about Nick Pope and his weighs up goalkeeper decisions. I think, you know what it is? I think the two, well, he's got three for me. Three big decisions to make on Sunday. Goalkeeper, centre-back, and whether he rests Bruno. Those are the three big ones that I think, and we'll obviously discuss that tonight in the preview. And then obviously we'll ask you guys when you come on and join us on the show. I think those are the three big decisions he's got ahead of this game. But time will tell. But that's it for the news this morning. Thank you very much for joining in. Please do give it a like if you've enjoyed the show, you're watching it live or you're watching it on a rerun. And of course, if you're new and you like what you see, come and join this fantastic community by hitting that subscribe button. Free to do so. But don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload or a live show in the future. Thank you, mods. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we will see you again tonight for the preview and fan forum. In the meantime, have a fab day, folks. See you soon.
Come back and check out the